Alright, in this tutorial I'm going to teach you how to model a house. This is going to be kind of a simple kind of brownstone type house like you would find in a large city. So I already have here drawn out a spline that represents the floor plan of the building. I also have two separate splines here. I have a trim for the top of the building as well as one that will be halfway up the building. We're going to make it 2 stories, and so there's going to be a trim up the second part. Alright, so I have my main path, trim B, trim A. I've already gone through and created those. So I'm going to start here with the main path, and I'm just going to clone it once as a copy and call it house. I'm going to go in here and now put an extrude on it, the simplest tool that we have in order to model. Alright, so let's go ahead and bring this up nice and tall. Oops, a little bit too tall. Alright, put that up there to put it at 1200 units. And we'll give it 2 segments. Alright, now I'm going to right click and convert this to an edit poly. Alright, I'm going to take this now, and up here on the top I'm just going to select these points and connect them together. Same over here, because I don't want to have a giant end-on on the roof. So I want to make sure that whenever I can, I connect those points together to make sure that everything's based on 4-sided or 3-sided polygons. I'm going to do the same thing for the bottom. Select 2 points and click connect. I'm here in Edit Poly Vertex as I'm doing this, clicking on 2 points and just connecting them together. Alright. Next, I'm going to come over here to the side, and I'm going to region select because I want to grab that main path. I'm going to go ahead and clone it. So I'm just holding shift and dragging this up. I'm holding the Z axis, moving that up, that clones it. Say roof trim. Okay. And here I'm going to come in and I'm going to put a bevel profile on. Now you're going to have to switch over to classic in later versions of Max, and then you pick profile and you're just going to click on that shape. All right. And so what we see in this case is it's actually facing inside out. So I just need to come in here, go into the sub object, select the profile gizmo, click on the angle snap, switch to rotate, and I'm going to rotate this around 180 degrees. There we go. So now I have my roof trim on my building. I can Alt W to switch out to the alternate view. I've turned off bevel profile. If I move, you see this is right up here at the top. I might lower this down just a little bit so it's kind of intersecting slightly. Okay, there we go. Let's take this shape, and I'm going to clone it again. This time I'll clone it differently. I'm going to come up to Edit and say Clone as a copy, and this will be Trim Middle. And I'm going to lower this down. How high was this? We made this building. I'm in vertex mode. I'm selecting the top vertex point. That's 1200 units. This vertex right here is at 0. So that would make this center line, if I wanted it to be centered, would be 600. Oops, 6, not 60, 600. Alright, now I can say pick profile and click the other profile, and now I have my secondary trim for my building. Okay. Next what we want to do, we want to go ahead and I'm going to cut some holes from windows, but before I do that I want to subdivide the sides a little bit more. So let's select one of these edges. Right, I'm just going to click ring, and that'll grab all the edges going all the way around. Let's right click and say hide unselected so we can just see the house. Perfect. Now I'm going to open up connect. I'm going to connect this together 3 times. Oops. Leave the... Accidentally clicked on slide there. Let's turn that off and say OK. There we go. Now I want to put windows into my house. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to select, I'm zoomed out here in the top by hitting Z, that'll zoom out and center my window. what I want to do is I just want to grab the polygons that make up these areas that come out of my building. I'm going to click on Inset here, and I'm going to bring that in, but I also want to change it from group to by polygon. There we go. Those windows are going to be a little bit tall, so I need to scale them. My scale is set to the top one, which is pivot point center, so when I scale, I'm able to kind of scale them all together. There we go. That's about right for what I want my windows to be, and I'm just going to hit delete. Now I don't necessarily want windows on every single wall, so I'm going to select these two in the front, and since I'm selecting, I'm going to just come up here to select object. I don't want to accidentally click on something and move it. Keep coming around, and then I'm going to put a window here and here, and then around the other side I'm going to do the same thing. Come over so that my windows aren't matching everywhere. Okay, now these spaces, they're about the same. I'm going to click Inset, and it's going to be pretty big for my windows, so I need to make these smaller. There we go. Click OK. That's pretty good. And then we're just going to delete those. On the front, we're going to need to have be a door. So I'm going to come around to the front and back. And here in the front view, we're just going to take this and lower it down, not all the way to 0, just slightly above it. Zoom out. I'm going to right click on my object. Actually, I'll do this easier way. Go to Display, Display Properties, Backface Cull. There we go. So now we're only seeing the outside. Alright, so I got the holes for the windows. The next step is for me to just go back to Modify. I'm going to go into Border. I'm going to switch again to Select. I'm going to select my windows here. And grab that one in the front. Get these on the side. Selecting all the windows there. Grabbing this one here in the front. Alright, I'm going to scale these again, just so that I get them to kind of match the same height at least of those other windows. Alright, there we go. So that's good. Alright, now what we need to do, we need to bring in our windows. So I'm going to come up here to File, Import, but I want to go to the arrow and I want to select Merge. Now you need to go find your double hung window, and if you don't have one, then you're going to have to make one. There's my window. I select it and I say Open. Now that opens up the Merge window. In here I can click on the file I want. Now I actually went into my window file and I named it Window. It helps to name your files, because otherwise you might open this up and just have it say Plain or Box or something like that. Select the file you want. It's OK, and that's going to bring that in. So there's my window. So here's my window. I'm going to leave this one here at the center. I'm just going to hold Shift and drag it over. I'm going to make this window underscore small. Okay, so let's go here to the front. I'm actually going to select my windows and give them a lighter color so they're easier to see. There we go. Okay. I'm going to turn off my grid. I'm going to select just one of these windows and move them over here. I'm going to scale them. I'm going to try and center him on the window. Now the goal here is to have a nice border around the edge, so it makes it a little bit easier to place these windows. That way we could just have them kind of overlap the sides. So the window's almost good enough. I just need to, it would help if he was just a little bit taller. So instead of scaling, I'm just going to select and move these verts. And just kind of adjust. Actually, why don't we just grab all these guys and put an FFD on it. It's the 2 by 2 by 2. I'm going to click Control Points, drag and come up. There we go. Collapse 2. Yes. Alright, So there's my window, my small one. You can see I have a nice thick border. I made it so that the window sits inside there. Alt W to go out. Let's move this guy so he's... Apparently I lined him up with the back window. I'm going to hit F4 to show all edged faces. I can move my window. And I'm going to line it up from above. There we go. So before I get too much further, let's select our house. I'm going to go ahead and put a shell modifier on it. Now, with a shell modifier, if I increase the outer amount, you're going to see that the model will kind of start to bend and bow. It kind of starts to warp it. But if I increase the inner amount, I really don't run into that issue. There we go. I'm going to give it a thickness of 25. So then I can select my window and kind of center it here on that shape. And then I'm just going to start taking my window and start positioning. If I hold Shift and drag it up, I'm going to clone this as an instance. I'm going to hold Alt W to go to the other window. Alright, so I have these guys. I can hold Control to select them both. And I'm just going to hold Shift to clone them over as instances and hit and rotate. I'm going to rotate this into position. And I just want to try and line it up. There we go. What I'm doing is I'm looking at, here's the gap for the window, and here's my actual window mesh. And I'm kind of bringing it and trying to center it side to side as well as from the top. Like that's pretty good right there. We'll zoom out and we'll look. Yep, it's looking good. Then I'll just hold Shift, or you can always right click and go into clone right there. It says instance. That works too. I'm going to switch to rotate. I'm going to rotate these windows. Go back to move, and I should be able to move them into position. And just moving them left to right, that worked pretty good. Let's Alt W to go out. There we go. See, we're getting some nice windows for our building. We'll go ahead and region select all of these windows. And I'm just going to right click and say clone instance. I'm going to move them down. Go into rotate. Rotate them 180 degrees. Go into move. Hit Z to zoom in on them. I'm also going to hit G to turn off the grid. Now I'm just going to kind of work to center these again. Alright, so that's about centered. Comparing over here, let's Alt W to go out and then Z to zoom over. Okay, this is looking pretty good. Now the thicker the border you have, the easier it is to go in and position all your windows. Right? If your windows aren't matching the holes, you can either adjust the size of the holes for the windows or just adjust the overall shape of the window. Oops, I accidentally moved my house. Let's undo that. That's no good. Alright, so we have our windows. They're placed on the house, at least one set. So let's do this. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to select the other window. So I'm going to move him over to the side. I'm just going to clone him. Clone as a copy. And this one I'm going to call window wide. Now let's move him over. I'm going to center him here in the front. Alt W to maximize the window. Move him over. I'm going to try and center him on this spot. W. Alright. And now here in the front, let's raise him up. We'll line him up with where that window is. Now again, he's too big, so we're going to have to put our FFD modifier on. I'm in the control points here. I'm selecting, region selecting the top, and I'm going to lower them. Let's go to the top level, select the house, right click and say hide unselected. Then we can select our window again and say control points. If I zoom in, I'll line up my frame so it lines up at the top of the frame there. Grab the bottom here, I'm going to raise this up so that lines up as well, right here where the ledge is. And we can come over to our window and we can see if it matches. Does that match the size? Let's region select these sides. Yeah, he looks like he's almost the right size. I'm going to change from front to the back view. Oh yeah, look at that. There's a little bit of a gap. So we want to grab those control points, go to F3, and then just kind of pull this over. There, now that gap is gone. Now we're going to check it over on the other side as well. There's our gap. Bring this over. All right. So there you go. Now we have our window now. He looks, our window's not really consistently thick here, so I'm going to collapse 2 and say yes. This is a lot thicker in the middle than it should be, so I'm going to go into Vertex, select these points and go into Scale. I'm going to scale these in to get sort of the thickness in the center to kind of match the outside. That looks pretty good. Alright, turn that off. And now I could go through and I could start positioning this window everywhere else. I'm just going to clone as an instance, and I'm going to move him over. And there I see there's these segments right here. That means there's a window there. I'm going to rotate, position this. First I'm going to center it from the side, kind of here where the center of the windows are. And then move it down. If I move it, okay, there's the top and the bottom. We'll just kind of position that just like so. Z to zoom out, and we'll look. Oh, look at that. It's a window. He's looking good. Alright. Right click, say clone as an instance. Clone him too. I'm just going to move him down. Let's go to our W. There's my window. And I'm looking for these little lines here and there, and that's how I'm positioning my windows. Okay. So I have all those windows in place. I'm going to select all 3 of these and clone as an instance. And then just rotate 180 degrees. And go to move them. I'm just going to move to center this guy here. There we go. He's centered. And now just moving to adjust him with the window hole that was cut out of the building. Alright. Zoom in over here and double check the other ones. They seem to fit as well. Alright. Windows are looking good. Let's zoom out. I'm going to hit G to turn off the grid. I'm going to region select and then deselect the house. And I want to take all the windows. I'm just going to drag them down and say instance clone. So now we have windows on the first floor as well. Okay. Alt W to get out of there. So we're looking pretty good. If we unhide all, we could see everything that we have. Our house is looking pretty nice. I'm going to take this window and I'm going to click Make Unique to make that window unique. Alright, what I want to do here real quick is I'm going to turn this into a door frame. I'm just going to come in. Actually, I want to undo that. Let's do Edit. Control Z. Alright, so he's still an instance. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click the two, this one in the back and the one on the front. I have both of them selected. I'm going to use this button here. I'm not in the sub-object, so I can use this button. It's going to ask me, do I want to make the selected items unique with respect to each other? And I'm going to say no, because as I make changes to this one model here, I want those changes to happen to the other one in the back. And that's what happens when they're both instances. So let's change object properties here and turn on back face cull. And say OK. And now Alt W, and I'm going to make this a front view. Hit F3. Alt W and zoom in, and I'm just going to come in and I'm going to use my make planar along Y, which is the wrong one because that pinched them together. So I'm going to undo that. It's make planar along Z. There we go. Then I'm going to click the weld button. Same thing here. Make planar along Z, weld, Z, and weld. And I can grab the ones up here on the top and make those planar along X and weld them together. From here, for this to be a door, Alt W, I could just take those points and I can lower them down to have them be more like a door jamb. I can raise them up here in the front. There we go. Looks like they don't quite line up. Well, that's okay, because here's what we're going to do. I'm going to just select these polygons and these polygons and delete them. I'm going to grab these vertex points, go into wireframe, make sure I only got the bottom, lower those down, and then I'm going to put a symmetry modifier on. I'm going to change it to work on the Z-axis and go into the mirror plane and just lower that down. I'm getting my door jamb one way or another. There we go. I can right click and say collapse to. Okay. So there we go. There's the basic start of my house. One last thing to do. I'm going to select my house here. I'm going to right click and say collapse to on this shell. Convert this to an edit poly. I'm going to go into Polygon mode, and I want to give my house a little bit of a foundation. So I'm going to switch to select here. I'm going to hold control and go through and select the bottom polys on this house. There we go. I'm going to hit F3. I just want to make sure I only have polygons in the bottom of the house selected, and I do. So let's extrude this down about 100 units. There we go. Perfect. F3 to go back out. And now I'm going to click on one and hold Shift to get the entire ring going around here. And what we're going to do is we'll just extrude this out by local normal, but only a little bit, only like one, maybe 2 units. Give it a little bit of a thicker foundation. And then we don't want to keep it at 90 degrees. Let's go ahead and we'll put a slight outline on it so it angles a little bit there. And we'll zoom out. I'm going to select everything here on the bottom and just make that planar along Z. Alright, there we go. Now, our house is not up to code. That's because we don't have any stairs. So I'm going to select one edge here and hit ring. And let's connect that 2 times. Now here on the front, I'm going to select these polys. I'm just going to extrude those out about 100, let's say 200 units. Oops. Sorry about that. 200 and hit OK. There we go. And then I'm just going to deselect the top one and just extrude that out. Let's say 65. Say OK. And then just hit semicolon to repeat last action. Right, so that gives us some nice stairs. Right, nice stairs. They're up to code. And we can go around the back side and do the same thing. Zoom in here. Select 1, 2, 3. We'll extrude those out 200. Deselect the top one, and then we'll just extrude these out 65. Deselect the top one. Oops. Select only the bottom and then hit semicolon to repeat. Alright. So there we have our basic house. Right. It's looking pretty good. In the next tutorial, we're going to talk about how we're going to go through and UV unwrap this house.